I'll be brutally honest with you. What I'm about to say is going to sound extremely hyperbolic, so bear with me. But out of every opportunity that you have available to you in 2025, out of every business model that you could invest in that could potentially afford you the freedom, the impact, the fulfillment, the income that you want to create for yourself, out of every opportunity available to you in 2025 and beyond, I'm dead serious when I tell you the single greatest opportunity out of all of them is building your personal brand. I started creating content 8 years ago. And 8 years ago when I started, I was a university dropout. I'd failed in high school and didn't get the grades that I wanted to get into the thing that I wanted. So I just picked the first fucking thing that would take me at university and then dropped out after 2 weeks when I couldn't hack going to uni a couple times a week. I had a job as a personal trainer that I didn't really like. I thought I would love a career in fitness, but realized that a passion for fitness didn't translate into a passion for a career in fitness. And I had no money. I was living at my parents' house and I started making content. And now 8 years later, as a result of that one decision to start making content, I have an audience of over 500,000 people online. And I have a business that personally makes me over $1 million a year in profit. And I don't know a single other fucking opportunity available on the planet to someone like me in that position that I was in 8 years ago that could create the life that I have today 8 years later. And so in today's video, I want to, one, encourage you to start building your personal brand. But two, I want to share some of the principles that I've learned over those 8 years that have helped me build my personal brand to where it is. And not only my personal brand, but have helped me build my business to the point where it now makes 7 figures a year. But in case you're sitting there right now still wondering, who the fuck is this guy and why should I listen to him? My name's Noske. I've been a content creator, like I said, since 2016. And in the last 2 years, I've built my online education business from 0 to 7 figures per year. Now with this YouTube channel, I'm trying to make videos to help some of you hopefully do the same as I've done. The first thing I want to talk to you about is why am I so excited about personal branding? What is it about personal branding that makes me genuinely believe it is the greatest opportunity that we have ever been afforded as aspiring entrepreneurs, as people like I was 8 years ago? Why is it so exciting to me? Why is it something that I'm happy to build my entire business around? Why am I so passionate about personal branding? The first reason is that I think it's one of the only opportunities where you can get started on it before really knowing where the fuck you're going with it. When I started creating content in 2016, I started creating content because I wanted to be a photographer. I purchased a camera because I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing in my life. I took the savings that I'd built as a personal trainer, which wasn't much, and I bought a entry-level camera with a kit lens and I started taking photos. And as a result of starting to take photos, I saw that other people were sharing their content online. And so I started an Instagram. The same Instagram that I use to this day, I started because I wanted to build an audience around my photography. I didn't even really know if it was going to be a career. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't even really plan on making money. I was still working as a personal trainer, but I started all the way back then with no real idea of where I was going. And over the last 8 years, through shifts and change and pivots and growth and failure and success, I've slowly built it to the point now where I have an audience around something that I'm deeply passionate about. I have the ability to share whatever the fuck I want in regards to my own personal life and build my personal brand around all of the things that I'm passionate about. And I have a business that makes me over $1 million a year at over 90% profit margins. There are very, very few opportunities, if any, I genuinely believe, that someone who doesn't really know what the fuck they're doing with their life is able to get started with no real idea of where they're taking it. All they need to do, if you want to get started with this, is start making content. There's no business plan. You don't need a clear idea of where you're going. It helps if you do. You're going to get there faster if you do. But I took the long road and it took me 8 years. And in 8 years, I've had the return that not even fucking Bitcoin can compete with. And so if you are one of these people that's unsure of where you're going, I don't think there's any opportunity that exists that's greater than the potential of building your personal brand. The second reason is that it's an investment vehicle that costs you nothing but your time and energy. I'm a really passionate investor. I grew up with a lot of financial instability as a kid. I won't get into it in this video. I've talked about it in previous videos, but I grew up with a lot of financial instability. And so that's given me a very conservative mindset when it comes to my finances. I'm very fixated on building my wealth to the point where I will eventually no longer have to worry about money, and my kids will no longer have to worry about money, and hopefully generations will no longer have to worry about money. And that's a direct result of my investing. I take the income I make and I invest it into assets that can then create me an income, and eventually the income from my investments will exceed any amount of active income I could make with my businesses. That is my goal. And so I believe, as much as the next guy, in things like the S&P 500. I invest a little bit in Bitcoin. I invest in property. I believe in these assets. But the crazy reality of creating content online is, out of every investment vehicle I've ever invested in over the last 8 years, my content has given me the greatest returns by a country fucking mile, and it is not even close, and I haven't had to invest a single dollar into it. Obviously, I've invested in mentorship, I've had business coaches, I've had people help me, but at the end of the day, and the gear, everything that you're seeing in front of me, of course, all of this costs money. But the beginning decision, the decision to start making content, cost me nothing but my time and energy. And in everything that I got back, I reinvested into more content. So all in all, this entire business cost me nothing but my time and energy to run. And there is nothing in my investment portfolio, there's no property I own, there's no asset I own that comes close to that return. And so I want you to start thinking of your personal brand like an asset, like Bitcoin, like the S&P 500, like property. It is an asset that can create an income for you in the future. And every single time you create content, every single time you hit publish on a new piece of content, you are building your equity in that asset. And so even though I'm deeply passionate about building my asset portfolio, even though I do take a massive chunk of my income every single month and invest it into assets, I still believe that the asset that is going to create the best returns for me in my lifetime is going to be my personal brand, by far. And so for any of you right now who are thinking, should I be investing in Bitcoin? Should I be investing in the S&P? Should I be investing in property? For most of you, unless you have an enormous amount of money to begin with, that is a complete waste of your fucking time even thinking about. Right now, if you want a vehicle that is going to by far create the biggest returns for you in the future, I genuinely believe it is investing your time and energy into building your personal brand. The third is that your personal brand has infinite compounding leverage. Leverage is obviously the ability to compound your results in the future. So if you can build a piece of content that goes out in the world, that content gathers an audience, and then you sell to that audience, the amount of audience that that content gathers then dictates the amount of income that you can make. So one action can create potentially infinite amounts of income for you. The beautiful thing about personal branding compared to, say, a business which has compounding leverage is that that leverage is not only compounding, but it's transferable. You can move that leverage into whatever you want because the leverage is attached to you. My name, Tom Noske, my face, my likeness, my branding, everything is where my personal brand is, not the businesses that I sell to. So even though right now my leverage as my personal brand is attached to selling my core offer, which is my live cohort Time to Build, I can eventually in the future choose to write a book. And that may be the thing that I use my leverage to sell an infinite amount of times. Or I may, I don't know, start a clothing company or start an e-commerce business or start pretty much anything that I want because my personal brand is the thing that has leverage. And I can take that leverage and transfer it onto anything that I want in the future. You as a personal brand have the ability to attach yourself to anything that you want in the future, and that leverage comes with you. And so if I write a book in the future, all the leverage that I've built with my personal brand, every video I've made, every product I've sold, every customer I've ever had will potentially be interested in that new book or that new product or that new business based on the leverage that I've already built. The next point is that it opens doors for you and creates opportunities for you that you have no business being in. One of the craziest byproducts of my personal brand has been the rooms, the conversations, the dinners, the people that I've been able to speak to directly as a result of my personal brand, when in an alternate reality where I didn't build this personal brand, I would have had fucking no chance at speaking to these people. But because I invested, like I said, my time and my energy into creating content and building my personal brand, I'm able to have conversations with people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, go to dinners with people that have businesses that are far beyond the size of my own, have conversations with people I have no business having conversations with, go and speak at events that I have no fucking business speaking on stage at, all because of the personal brand that I've built. And so it has the potential in your future to create opportunities that you would have never, ever comprehended being your opportunities, because you create content and because that content builds leverage, and that leverage puts you in rooms that you never thought you'd be capable of sitting in. And the last point before I move on to how to build your personal brand is that what we have as personal brands, what we build with our audiences, the connection, the point of relatability, the value, the relationship that we have with our audience, traditional businesses pay millions and millions of dollars to create artificially. See, what we have when we create content around our own story, around us, and then we share that with the world as a way to build our own personal brands, that is why businesses pay athletes. That's why a company like Nike attach themselves to Serena Williams and Michael Jordan and LeBron James, because those people are Nike's only way of relating to their audience. A traditional business has no point of relatability to their customer. And so they have to artificially create a story in which they are relatable. Nike has to tell you to just do it, or sponsor Serena Williams for millions and millions of dollars a year just for you to relate to their brand. Whereas me, all I have to do is tell you my story. I have to get on here on camera and talk about my story, tell you what I believe in, tell you what I've experienced, and try to help you in some capacity. And that all that relatability that Nike spends millions of dollars creating, I get to create by simply sharing something with you. And so a personal brand has an ability to connect with their audience and their customers and relate to them on a level that a traditional business would literally kill for. And so this video is actually valuable, and not just me ranting at you about why a personal brand is so incredible. How do you actually build a personal brand? How do you start today creating content and building your personal brand in the future? And what have I learned over the last 8 years of doing this to hopefully set you up to learn from some of my failures and not make the fuck ups that I made, honestly, in the first 5 years of doing this? The first thing you need is you need a core mission. You need something at the center of your brand. This is what you'll become known for, and this is eventually what you will sell. Most of you, if you're watching this video right now, you have something of value. You wouldn't be watching this channel if you didn't have some kind of skill. And if you don't have some kind of skill, you already understand that you need some kind of skill in order to build a brand online. People don't care about you in the beginning. There is nothing that you could say, there's no story that you could tell in the beginning that people are going to care about more than the value you're providing them. This is transactional when you first start making content. You need to provide them with value in order for them to provide you with their time and their attention. And eventually, if you can be relatable enough, if you can tell your story enough, if you can make enough content, people will start to relate to you and like you more than the value you're providing. And that's when you build a truly powerful personal brand. But in the beginning, you have to have a core mission. There has to be something at the center of your brand that is providing your audience with more value than they are spending by spending time watching your content. And so ask yourself the question, what do you already have that other people would be willing to pay you for? That should be at the core of what your brand represents. And the important thing to remember is none of this is written into stone. I think so many people waste so much time worrying about what they're going to make content on, worrying about what their content's going to be about, what their niche is going to be. And all this does is leaves them thinking about making content more than actually making content. In the beginning, when I first started, all I was doing was sharing my photography. My awful fucking beginner photography was all I did when I first started making content. But slowly over that time, I started teaching some of the skills I built. Then I started sharing my experience on social media. Then I started sharing my filmmaking experience as I did that. Then I started sharing my experience as a freelancer as I built my freelance business. And slowly, as I shifted and evolved over time, I now have the business that I have today as a result of all the actions I've taken over those 8 years. And my core mission is dramatically different to what it was 8 years ago. But I still needed that core mission in the beginning, the thing that my brand was known for. For me today, my core mission, the thing at the core of my personal brand, is helping you build your own powerful personal brand and leverage that personal brand into an income online. That is the core mission of my brand, but it's not my entire brand. And that's the distinction that you need to make. That's the difference between a personal brand and a traditional business. Is a traditional business, their brand is their product, and those two things are interlinked. Whereas for you or for me, my core mission is just the centerpiece of my personal brand. And then everything else that makes me me, my passion for triathlon, the reason why I have my bike there in the background, my passion for all of the other things that I love, the fact that I love personal development, and a lot of my content revolves around personal development, motivation, more so than even personal branding. All of those peripheral things are the parts that make my brand impactful. But you still need a core mission at the center of it in order to create interest in your brand. And so if you are starting to make content, you need to think about what the thing is that other people would be willing to pay you for in order to create interest in your brand, or enough interest in your brand that people are willing to invest their time with you. And then slowly, as you can start to introduce more of the things that make you you, people will slowly start to realize that they're more invested in you than they are in the thing that you're providing value for. Number two, and this one's fucking obvious, but it begs repeating, is start taking content seriously. I think more than anything I see with content creators I speak to, with people I speak to who want to do this, is they're kind of keeping their seriousness at arm's length. They think if they treat this like a hobby, the risk is lower. They think that by, doing this when they feel like it and only making content when they have the inspiration to make content and not worrying too much about it, that they're mitigating the risk. But in reality, all you're doing is slowing down or completely eliminating your ability to build this into something successful. The single greatest thing that you could do this year to really move the needle is treat this seriously. Stop fucking around. Start making content a massive priority in your life. I hate that every time I give this advice online, every time I give this advice on social media, on Instagram, the comment section is filled with people being like, nah, you need to enjoy the process, so you're gonna force yourself to make content. That's no way to live. All these bullshit comments. But the thing you need to understand is if you want a hobby, you can have a fucking hobby. But if you want to build this into a business, which most of you do, if you're watching this channel, if you're listening to me speak, you want to build this into a fucking business, let's be real, then you need to take this seriously. You need to treat it like a business. You're not going to treat this like a hobby and then have it magically turn into something that's serious. The third thing you need to understand about building your personal brand is once you've got your core mission and once you're making content consistently, you need to figure out who you're speaking to, because this is where personal branding really comes into its element. The key to building a powerful personal brand is making people feel like you're speaking directly to them. Making them feel like every single time they consume a piece of your content, you are reading their mind. And the way to do this isn't by reading their fucking mind or by really deeply thinking about how you're going to target a specific person and understanding them. The way to do this is target a previous version of you. You are your own niche. And I know this has kind of become this overused phrase over the last few years on social media, but let me explain my philosophy around you are the niche. I want you to think about a previous version of you. I want you to think about an exact version, down to the year, down to the age, down to what you're doing in that moment. Literally think of a month, of a year, what you were doing in that time. For context, right now, I'm thinking of 2019 October Tom. That's exactly the person I'm thinking of right now. I had a relationship, a long-term relationship that was in the absolute shitter. I just moved out of my studio apartment and back in, or I was about to move out of my studio apartment and back in with my parents. I think I was like 23 or 22 years old, maybe a little bit younger, something around then. I probably should have thought about this before I made this video, but I'm thinking about October 2019 Tom. Now I want you to answer these questions. How old are they? How much money do they have? What do they spend their spare time doing? What is their deepest, darkest fear? What is their biggest ambition? What's their dream? And what's holding them back from achieving what they want to achieve right now? What's the thing that's going on in that person's head that is stopping them from achieving what they want to achieve? It's probably pretty easy to answer, right? You could answer it straight away because it's you. You can think back to what you were going through in that period of time and go, well, he was holding himself back because he didn't believe in his own ability. And, he only had this amount of money, so he was really scared of risk. And he was really worried about not living up to his potential. You know exactly what's going through that person's head. Now, based on your responses to that first question, I want you to answer this next question. How could you help that person achieve the results that you have today? Again, pretty fucking easy, isn't it? All you need to do is share the steps that you took between that version of you all the way to where you are today, and that person will take those steps and become the person that you are today. See, that's the power of making a previous version of you the person that you're targeting in your content. You know that person like the back of your hand. You have no issue helping them achieve their wildest dreams because you know the things holding them back. You know exactly what they're going through. And you might be thinking, well, my problems are unique. Why would anyone listen to me? Why would I speak about my own experiences? We're all pretty fucking similar. There are millions and millions of people who are exactly like you, going through the exact same things that you went through in the exact same order that you went through them. And so by you making content for that previous version of you, helping that previous version of you become who you are today, you will, as a byproduct, be helping millions of other people do the same. And so rather than guessing who you're making content for, guessing what type of content you should make, just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, rather than sticking to a fucking niche, I want you to think of a very specific previous version of you, and I want you to do everything you can in your content to help that person become who you are today. And now you might be thinking, well, Tom, I haven't really achieved what I want to achieve yet. Why would I be someone that I should speak to? You've achieved more than that version of you could ever dream of achieving. No matter how much further you have to go, you have made undeniable progress. And so where you are today, no matter where you want to go, is incredible to the person you previously were. And this will forever move. As I continue to grow, my business, that previous version of me, 2019, October Tom, which is the exact person I speak to when I'm speaking to you right now, that person will continue to evolve. Eventually to the point where 5 years from now, I may be speaking to myself right now. A future version of me is probably making content right now, trying to tell me to not make the fuck ups that I'm about to make in the future. And so for any of you wanting to do this, don't worry about anything other than helping serve that specific person. Don't worry about fucking perfecting your content or making content that's based on ideas that have already worked online. Don't worry about any of that. Just focus on helping that person. Because at the end of the day, if you want to succeed online, it is based on your ability to provide value and volume over time. To provide enough value in enough content over a long enough period of time, and you will succeed. If you can create a massive volume of content that provides a massive amount of value, you will win. And that's it. It doesn't matter how fucking terrible your hooks were. It doesn't matter how unoptimized your videos were or how edited they were or how good they looked. As long as you do those two things, provide enough value in enough volume of content over a long enough period of time, you will win. The last point I want to give you is probably the one thing most of you are going to struggle with, because it's the thing I see most people struggling with online, but it is also the thing that's going to move the needle greater than any other thing that you invest your time into when creating content online. But your ability to build a profitable business based on your personal brand has nothing to do with how great your product is. It has nothing to do with how good your content looks. Your ability to be profitable with your personal brand is entirely dependent on your ability to relate to people. See, the more that someone can relate to you, your story, your journey, your content, the more that they feel like they know you and can relate to you, the more likely they are to invest in your brand, your business, your products, your everything that you offer. The reason for this is we don't invest in things unless we feel like that thing is going to provide us with the solution that we want. And because we're emotional creatures, because we think emotionally, the number one thing we pay attention to is, can we see ourselves in the results that that person has created for themselves and for their customers? And if we can't see ourselves in that person or in their customers, we're not going to invest in that business. It's the reason why companies like Nike sponsor athletes, because people want to be those athletes. It's the reason why they share the backstory of this athlete going through hardships as a child and then struggling to build their career, because we also went through hardships and we also struggled to do those things. And so we see ourselves in the athletes that they sponsor, and so we want to then wear their shoes. The same thing goes for you and your brand. You need to share the things that make you you. You need to share your failures and your struggles and your setbacks and your fuck ups and your scars, everything that makes you you. You need to share all of those things because those are the things that people are going to relate to. They are the things that people will see and then choose to do business with you because they can see some part of themselves in some part of your story. A great example of this is that I share sometimes from time to time, whether it be in B-roll I use or in my stories that I tell or in any other piece of my content, even in the fact that I just have my bike in the background of my videos. I share my journey as an Ironman athlete. I race Ironmans a couple times a year. It's something I'm deeply passionate about. It's a huge part of my life. And I share my relationship between my business and the things I've learned from Ironman training that have created my business success. I just share the fact that I deeply enjoy it. And without fail, every single time we have a new intake of students in my core program, Time to Build, we have at least a dozen or 24 out of the 150 students that we have who have either done an Ironman, plan on doing an Ironman in the future, or are currently training for an Ironman that's happening in the immediate future. 24 out of 150. Do you know what percentage of the population has ever done an Ironman? 0.004% of the population has ever done an Ironman. Those numbers don't math. The math does not fucking math in this situation. But the reason is anyone who races Ironman or has an interest in endurance sport and also has an interest in building their audience online and creating content and building a business, I've now become their favorite person. Why the fuck would they learn from anyone else in the space? I share the same hobby that they share, and so they see some part of themselves in some part of my story, and so they believe that my service, my offer, my product will help them achieve the result that they want more because they can see themselves in my journey. And so whilst most creators are terrified of sharing anything other than the very restrictive niche that they've created for themselves, if you can just be the person that tells stories, shares everything, shares who you are, shares your personality, shares your fuck ups, your failures, your successes. If you can share all of it, you'll build this rich story around your personal brand that people will be able to attach themselves to. A really good way to analogize this is origin stories. In superhero movies or in movies in general, there is always an origin story of the hero. The reason we do that is because it's pretty fucking hard to relate to a genius with superhuman strength who can shoot webs from his wrists and climb on walls. But it's much easier to relate to an orphan who grew up getting bullied in high school and watched his uncle get shot in the street as a result of his actions. See, we are able to relate to a human spider because of his origin story. If there was no origin story, if there was no part of his story that we saw ourselves in, we wouldn't be able to relate to any part of Spider-Man. But as a result of his origin story, Peter Parker and Spider-Man is one of the most prolific characters in cinematic history. For you, for every single piece of content you make that shares you, that shares your background, your story, your history, your passions, your obsessions, your failures, your fuck-ups, your scars, every single piece of content you make that is peripheral to your core mission is building your origin story. It is building a story that people can relate to. It is building something that will make you, your business, and your brand irresistible in comparison to every single other person who does what you do. No business can compete with your business if your customers see you as more relatable than every other person in the space. And by the way, if you want help doing this, I run a live cohort called Time to Build, where over 6 weeks, I will teach you everything you need to build your personal brand and then turn that into a powerful core offer and product that can then create an income for you in the future. And so if you want to be involved, click the link in the top line of the description and hopefully I'll see you in there. I hope this video helps and I'll see you in the next one.